There's a price to pay for whatever it is you want, but the actual process of how they started something never changes. Goal to goal, job to job, business to business, and then they just end up like spinning their wheels.
I value connection, but I'm doing a real shitty job of taking time to connect with myself.
You're disorganized, you lack focus, you don't get the shit done that you need to, but yet you're talking to people all day, every day. Because if I told somebody my goals, they'd be like, oh, well, that's exciting. And then they'd want to tell me about theirs, and I'd be like,
I'm sure it will work.
We're back. We're back. It's a new year. Back and ready to slay.
It's a new year. It's been a new year for the entire podcast.
At this point, you guys are listening to this. You're either one of two people. You've continued with your New Year's resolutions, or you've already fallen off.
That was terrible.
Where's the lie?
You're not wrong.
You're if you're listening to this, we're at least like the third or fourth week of January here.
We're what? The first two episodes came out on the 3rd. This is coming out on the 10th.
Yeah, lots of people quit within 10 days.
That's on the third or fourth week of January. Your math is so bad.
Bro, I'm just existing.
Okay.
Before we get into what I actually want to talk about today, I do have a question. I have a statement and I have a question. My statement is this. Lots of people say that you quit in the last 10%. Stop 3 feet from gold. Yeah. People like apply themselves. And then the last 10% is where most people give up. I think people quit after giving 10%. That's my statement. Now my question is,
okay.
What's your opinion about that?
What's your opinion on my statement?
Well, my statement's probably not going to change.
But I'm not looking for it to.
But I'm curious. Do you think people quit near the finish line, or do you think they start to gain some traction, get into momentum, and then they give up when they've just barely left the starting line?
I think it's both. I think it honestly depends on. It's both, and I think in most cases, in hindsight, you realize you gave up too early. Like you got 10% of the way in. And here's why I say that. If a lot of times when people are starting something new, or they like go high energy on something, it's often on the back of some sort of emotional swing that they just went through. Like, oh my God, the classic one is I just went through a terrible breakup and now I'm a fucking gym junkie 8 days a week and fucking...
Revenge bod,
yeah,
baby.
Revenge bod. Fucking kill me.
You haven't lived if you haven't got a revenge bod.
Then I haven't lived. I must just be dead and existing. The thing is though, it's like you get... when you come off of emotion, emotion can be a very powerful thing. It's just in what lens are you feeling, like experiencing it. I think when it comes on the back of joy, it's a lot more sustainable for a longer period of time. I also think for many people that we see, the burnout, the tired, the whatever that's coming with it is on the back of frustration. And so I think if you've consistently over time tried to be optimistic and you keep, in your perception, failing, your tolerance to endure for many people actually reduces over time. Like, and I'll give this to an example that you can probably understand for you. I'm aware you care about your health and your fitness. And when we first started working together, your whole first year was a fucking sabbatical, and I quite literally gave you maybe 50% of what you were doing with the previous coach. That was almost too much. There wasn't checking in. There was some adherence to training. Diet could have been in 8 different ways. It wasn't that you weren't able to like start then and there, but I think with everything you had gone through up until that point, you were tired. So
crash dieting, binge eating.
Yeah, 100%. But it's like, if you are fucking exhausted, then that's why I was like, this is what we're doing. And I was like, even that might be too much. And it probably was too much for a little bit. And that's okay. But I think a lot of people, when that happens, it's a reflection of you have done everything you can, and we just didn't start slow. And when I say slow, I mean like really slow. And so we're tired. So I think, yes, it's usually we give up way too early. That's my personal opinion. And on the other side of it, I think we don't start with a understanding of why we're in pursuit of something or on the journey of. And I think that's where we fuck ourselves. So yeah, I think you quit early. I mean, I think that's the case with most people in business too. A number of my friends who are like the number of my friends I've watched, like this one was probably the biggest mindfuck. A lot of people get into business. There's the whole I can't work for someone else. I want to be a millionaire. The only way to do it is this way. And then the reality of business comes around, and it's like a million top line is not a million in your pocket, and it also doesn't mean your net worth's a million, and you're probably going to spend money, and like you at minimum need to make double that depending on your business model. Like that's a hard pill for people to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
That to make like real money, it requires way more work than you think.
I'm going to piggyback off that because I feel similar. I think a lot of people start a goal or they're like, I want this. Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't know why they actually want it. It's like, oh, I saw something and this was cool. And I have this belief of what it is supposed to be. And then they embark on this path. But they never stop to think, what are the risks? What are the constraints? No. What are you going to have to give up? There's a price to pay for whatever it is you want. Like if you want 6-pack and you want to be absolutely fucking shredded, it's like you're going to have to track your food. You're going to have to go to the gym and train when you don't want to and do all of these things. I think that we set goals and we're not clear on why we want it, but then we also don't take the time to consider, am I actually willing to pay the price for this thing that I want to acquire? And then I think people get started with something and they come in super hot with a lot of like excitement and energy around it. And then they're like, holy fuck, this isn't actually where I want to invest my time and energy. And then they drop off. But then they repeatedly do that. But the actual process of how they started something never changes. Goal to goal, job to job, business to business. And then they just end up like spinning their wheels.
Yeah.
Running in a loop.
Even with the 6-pack thing, it's like the question is, do you want the 6-pack in the next 12 weeks? There's so many ways to crash and burn and get you there. Do you want it to be your, like, almost like your default state, like you're lean and you're jacked or whatever? And that's, for most people, that's two different processes. Mm-hmm. Like, I think a big part of it is ingratiating habits and behaviors that almost like even by accident or by default, create what you're looking to create. You know, like if you're consistent, here's the thing. If I train consistently, get enough steps, take care of my heart health, get good sleep, recover, do that long enough consistently, I probably will look exactly how I want to, if not better, all of the time, year round, over a long time horizon. We want yesterday. It's the same thing in business. Like you want a lot of money in business, like be ready to go 3, 5, 10 plus years. Like, it's no different than fitness. There are some people who, much like in fitness, you have better genetics, so you might see certain things in year 1 and 2. Some people might not see until year 5, or might not see until year 10. I think the challenge is, like, our perspective on what it's going to require of us and what it's going to look like for us is insane. I think fitness makes it easy because I always make the joke to even clients, but even friends of mine. I was like, the day you started lifting weights was the day you accepted that you're forever small. It doesn't matter what you do. You're never jacked enough. After that first day. The same thing is true in business. Once you start making a little bit of money, it's never enough. Mm-hmm. Right? Like to some degree, that is the perspective for most people. I think when you extract your value from the process of being the person and consistently developing and evolving that's where the fulfillment comes, and where it's meant to settle financially, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationship-wise, it does. And you'll love it. But I think we're very outcome attached. And so when you say, okay, do people quit too early? They do, but it's like, how did they even get to the point that they had to quit? Mm-hmm. There's a difference between quitting because it was very evident that you are throwing spaghetti against the wall and it's not sticking, versus like, I'm realizing I shouldn't throw spaghetti, but I can get something to stick on the wall.
Yeah.
I just need to change it. So.
Well, agreed. Which leads me into
topic of discussion for.
Yeah. The messages, got a few messages on social media that I think kind of segue into this. I'm going to read one because I think this is a good starting point for the topic we want to discuss. Here it is. I sprint every day to achieve more for the company. I work weekends and weeknights, and I know this isn't healthy. Any thoughts about life work restructuring? I can't sustain this pace, and I know the company would replace me in less than an hour if I died tomorrow. So that's one of the messages. And then there's kind of another one that says something similar where it's like, I work hard, I give 110%, but I seem to find jobs, owners or managers who take advantage and never compensate for my sacrifice. I'm 45 and I'm getting tired of fighting for everything and still feel like shit daily. So when I read this, I think there's a couple things. And one of the, I guess, discussions that I want to start with is this is a pattern of behavior that probably shows up in multiple areas of your life and not just in the workplace. So working weekends, weeknights, overdoing it, like you just have no boundaries. And you have a pattern of behavior where you probably over-index into something. Mm-hmm. So kind of starting there. People kind of jumping through life without ever realizing maybe their own patterns and how that shows up, not just in work, but overall.
I think this makes for a very interesting conversation because, one, your desire to tolerate certain things are going to be very different at different stages in your life. I think the 25-year-old career-driven person who's trying to build a foundation for their future has a very different relationship and perspective or dynamic with work than the 40-year-old mom who also wants to spend time with their kids, or even a father, right? I think there's two things that come to mind, especially with the first comment. The question is, why do you keep doing it? Like, what is your belief about doing it? And is that actually true? Like, is there conversations around what the purpose of what you're doing is? Have you talked to management, whoever you report to, whatever that looks like for you? Have you had conversations about what it's going to require to go where you want to go within the company to contribute to it, right? I think that's part of it. The second thing is a lot of times we're just not clear with what the company wants or needs, like fully for you to evolve within it, to kind of support that side of the conversation. And I think that's difficult for people to realize that, like, it's your job to be clear just as much as the company's. The other question to ask is this what you even want? And I think a lot of people come out of school or into the career sector and they get into something and it's like, do you actually want to do this? Do you enjoy it? Does it bring meaning and purpose for you? Like, is that what you want to do? And I think if you haven't answered that question yet, you're kind of shooting from the hip and not really living. You're going to experience that with work, just like you're going to experience it with other places in your life. Like my guess with that person saying or asking that question, there are a multitude of places in their life that's actually happening.
Yeah. I don't think my perspective is that different. I find it interesting that when we are unsettled in our personal life and with ourselves or relationships, marriage, friendship, living environment, wherever it is, we will find something to attach to, which is often like work or an area that we feel significant and we can drive certainty from it. And then we over-index there and we just keep going back to that and we never deal. Because here's the thing. If somebody stopped working every weekend till 9:00 at night and like truly was like, okay, cool, these are my hours, I'm going to do them, I'm going to show up and like bring the best of me like in this time period and get quality work done, and yet hard cut at 6, what happens from like 6 till 9 in your personal life? Is there just so much discomfort that you experience within yourself, in your marriage, where you are, that it's just so much easier to like numb and medicate yourself with work? Because I think sometimes like people over-index in that area, and it's not that your boss is asking you to or expects you to. You just naturally do it, and then you are rewarded for it because it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you so much. This is the hardest worker on the team. But where you're coming from isn't because you genuinely love the work. You might like the work, but you like the work more than sitting with the discomfort of what would happen if at 8 o'clock you weren't working on something.
I don't think that's a function of liking, though.
Of work.
Yeah.
So I think it's avoidance of their personal life.
Yeah. I don't think that, but what you just said, where it's like you like the work more than you like the having to deal with what you have to, I think it's more, I'd rather not deal with this than it is liking the work. And I have seen that with people who, like, in my own life, I've watched them try to convince me how much they love their job. And I'm like, but you're still complaining about it. So which one is it? It's not both.
Yeah.
You can have conversations around where the pitfalls are, but it can't be this place fucking sucks, but like, oh, I love it. And like that, I need to work till 9 o'clock at night. It's like, are you sure? Because that's not what it sounds like. I think for most people, they're avoiding stuff. Whatever else is going on in their life. So
how does somebody, I guess is like a twofold conversation. One, how does somebody identify that is what they are doing? It's like, hey, this isn't a function of like your boss is overworking you, the culture's fucked, XYZ. Like this has nothing to do with work. This has to do with your own behavior and how you're showing up here. How does somebody discern that is what they are doing? How can they even start to bring awareness to that?
I think you ask yourself, if you feel a certain way about your work-life balance or whatever you want to call it, what does that actually look like to you? Like, ask yourself that, and what would you be doing with that whatever fraction of additional time you get by being in work-life balance? So if instead of like working till 9, you work till 6, what are you doing from 6 to 9 then? Like, what does that look like for you? That's question one. Then the second question is this the environment that's going to be able to facilitate you that for at any point? Like, is this a season of your life you need to work, and that's what this is going to look like for a period of time, and that's okay? Or is this something that there's no way out of, and you have, from conversations you've had and clarity you've gotten? I think where this gets interesting, it then becomes a conversation of like your own value. I think for a lot of people, they want to change their work environment. They do not have the awareness or the humility to be like, I'm potentially going to switch jobs and potentially make a little bit less money for a period of time, but to be able to have the time freedom and the structure of life that I want to have and find something different. I think a lot of people don't have the humility to do that. Especially when their entire identity and value is derived from, I work. Like, that is there. And again, we're human. It's like, things that, I don't even remember, like over a third of our life is going to be working, like, or even half. I don't even remember the statistics, but it's like, if over half or even a third of your life is going to be work anyways, if we assume 8-hour day work days, which for some people that's not actually the case, but if a third of your life is going to be work, and it's also going to be a big thing that you derive your value from, okay, what is that actually going to look like for you? So I think for a lot of people, they don't actually ask themselves those questions. Like, what do I want with this? What do I actually want this to look like? You can tell me you're frustrated, but that's like someone being like, I'm fat and I don't like being fat. And then not going any further as to, what do you want it to look like?
Yeah.
What does that actually feel like to you? What does it seem? I think that's where we get caught up in work environments. It's like, what do you want this to look like for you? Like, what do you truly want? I think people's beliefs don't line up with reality. We've talked about this on previous episodes. It's like, I want this thing, and reality currently doesn't provide it. But the problem for us is we think the problem is reality, but the problem is us. And so at some point you have to have the conversation of, okay, what do I actually want? And then how can I make what I want line up with the reality I'm in?
Yeah. I can see a world that somebody would get tired and frustrated and feel like, I want to work less because I don't have balance in my life. Put that space there. Stop work early. Not pick up as many shifts. But then not have a clue what they want to do with their time. And then you still don't feel better because nothing you're doing actually nourishes you and fills your cup up. Because getting off work at 6 and scrolling reels for 3 hours
is not it either.
Is not actually what it is that you're looking for. So it's like, what would you do with that time if you weren't at work? I also think that, you know, people have their own nature and things that they value and like and they enjoy. I think there are people who like you genuinely love the work you do, and you would more times than not want to create and want to build. But if you do not have space away from it, then you never fill up your cup and you don't appreciate the work that it is you are doing. So I think it's figuring out like which camp you fall in. Like you said, what do you believe? What do you want? What is that to you? And it doesn't matter because there's no right or wrong. It is whatever fills you up.
It's to go into what you had said about the second comment. It's a clarity conversation.
Yeah.
It's like if you're working all these hours and your immediate thought is they're taking advantage of me or it's not rewarded or whatever it is, the question then becomes, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like, get clear on what you're looking for. The one that I find is most... I've seen this be the one that a lot of people have a hard time swallowing when their initial feedback is the level to which they think they are performing or doing, for lack of a better term, is not even congruent with the needs of the organization. And that's a function of two things. Either you weren't clear at the beginning of what you had to do and never asked to find out, like, if I'm doing this, or like, what does succeeding here look like, or evolving here look like? That's one. And then two, the other side of it is, are you even good enough at what you do currently that the value is being extrapolated by your extra work? Because if you're good enough, by the definition of what the success metrics are in an organization, I'm hard pressed to believe a company would drop the ball on you. And if they were, you would be very solid in you being like, hey, this is what we identified as success. I'm exceeding this. You're not rewarding me. It's a very straightforward conversation. Find a new place to go. Take all your free time and find another job, start interviewing, whatever. Like, it's so black and white at that point. I just think we're not clear on it, and then we can't identify what the actual issue is. Is it a function of, I'm clear, I'm just not good enough yet? Or I'm clear and I haven't been doing what I need to create the outcome I'm looking for within the construct of what I'm doing? And that's a function of clarity.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not percentage. How many people do you think fall into the camp where it's like you're not as skilled as you think you are at the role you are doing, or your ability to like drive a result and outcome?
I think most people are not yet, not that they can't be, are not yet as good at the thing that they think they are in the context of the work environment when they are complaining or being upset about or arguing about why I haven't been promoted or like this isn't going in the direction I want it. I think we have a lack of awareness of just how long it takes to be that good. And the other side of it too is, and this is on the business owner side, but this is also the employee side. When you are that good, people can tell.
I agree.
I don't think I'm aware of this because I do have friends that I'm like, man, that company dropped the ball by not keeping you. People who are deeply certain that they are good always find opportunities. Like, they're resourceful. They understand that, like, I am good, and therefore, if this doesn't work out, I'll find something else. Because for someone who is a true high performer, culture is everything. So on the flip side, it's like, remember, if you are good and you're in an environment that says they want good, but they're not rewarding good, a high performer is more attached to the culture than they are the payout. Because culture will dictate fulfillment in the workplace, not the money. Money matters, but like, you'll leave. I've seen it too. I've seen a good friend of mine who switched jobs, and I was like, the company that just lost you fucked up. They knew they fucked up after he left. Mm. And they didn't get, but he wasn't gonna sit there and wait 12 more months. He was like, I can give it a few months. I get it. Like, business is business. Not everything happens in a month, 2 months, 3 months. But after about 6, see you later. I'm playing the field. I don't think it took him but 30 days to find something new. Because he's that good. So if you are really good at what you do and you can communicate it effectively, you will find your next place. If that is the best path for you. Yeah. On the other end, most people are just not as good as they think they are. They got a couple experiences and like, oh, now I'm good because I've been in a couple environments. Right? Like, that's just the truth.
Yeah, I think when you are skilled and you know you can produce an outcome and a result, you just exude confidence. Yeah. And there's nothing arrogant about you. It's just like, you understand this, you challenge things, you ask different questions, and there's just a level of confidence about you that if this doesn't work out, oh, good, man. My character and skill set will open up future doors for me, and this is just like the next stop on my journey. I think when people lack that, I have an interesting thought about like imposter syndrome. And I think when people feel like they are an imposter and they ruminate on that, I think there's some awareness that you're not as good as you think you are, or how you are portraying yourself to be to the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think that shows up a lot in business, and even some of the people we've supported. It's like, you know, I'll get messages like, how do I raise my prices, as an example? And I struggle to raise my prices. I don't want to get pushback. I don't believe I'm worth it. And I probably have maybe like an interesting take on it or a response to them. It's like, well, you're probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you truly valued yourself and you believed in what you did and you were confident in your ability, you would have no issue raising your prices. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's a little bit of discomfort and you need like the first couple swings at bat, but then once you get it, you're like, oh yeah, like let's fucking go. But I don't think people will raise their prices. I don't think they'll do a lot of things if they intuitively know that there is a skill gap there. And if they don't trust themselves and believe in their ability to do something, they're not going to push the gas.
Imposter syndrome, I find, is attached to the identity of what you think you will be by being something that you aren't yet. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. A lot of people are like, oh, I feel like an imposter as a coach or whatever. It's like you think that by being, let's like use fitness for an example, by being Lane Norton or some named coach, there's something that comes with that. So you're more attached to what that means than the actual process of going through what you need to become whoever you're meant to be in the marketplace, or whatever you're meant to be in the marketplace as a coach. So imposters are often attaching their value and identity to whatever they believe outside of them. Like, oh, well, I'm not this coach. Like, you'll hear it in the coaching space, but you also hear it in business. It's like, well, we're not Apple. Or like, oh, I'm not this coach who makes X amount of dollars or has created hundreds of outcomes. It's like you're so attached to who that person is or what that thing means, not the, hey, how do I go down the process of becoming whatever my version of that is for me?
Yeah.
So as long as you're fixated on an outcome, it's the same thing with price. It's like, well, I can't charge X amount of dollars. Like if you're a coach, I can't charge X amount of dollars a month. Or I can't charge, 10% more for my product. It's like, okay, what would being more valuable look like as a coach? What would being more valuable look like in a product? That's all based on perception and the customer's perception of your value from an experiential standpoint. That has nothing to do with that doesn't only have to do with I have a swoosh on my shirt and therefore the shirt's worth 10%, 20% more.
Yeah.
That's part of it. That's a process of time as well. But it's like, that's not the only thing that drives that.
I think when people are hesitant to grow and punch the gas on stuff, I think there's some validity to it. And what I mean by that is we can only help and support somebody to the degree in which they communicate what is going on. Mm-hmm. And as like, if I just use as a business owner as an example, you have so many reference points and awareness of maybe things that aren't fully fleshed out, aren't cohesive, aren't systematized. You can see it. And you're like, if I was to dump 1,000 customers into this system right now, there's like very glaring things inside the business. Mm-hmm. So you're like, this would break and it will wreck our reputation. And I'm not willing to do it. Mm-hmm. Cool. That's valid. Like sure. You probably do have those reference points. But if you are unwilling to, as you said, how do we improve this? Mm-hmm. How do we add more value? How do we maybe alleviate this, systematize it so it's easier? It's a way better approach than just, well, fuck, we can't do anything because this is going to catch on fire. It's like, okay, it probably will catch on fire. So what do we have to put in place so it doesn't catch on fire? And then you can proceed to grow. And I think that happens with a lot of things in our life. I think even subconsciously, if you bring it back to weight loss, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z because maybe you have reference points throughout your life that your friends will be judgmental towards you. Oh, okay, well, if I change and I get into the best shape of my life, what if I lose these people or I don't get to hang out with these people anymore? Now I feel lonely. And it's like, I think something that people can do when they want to identify change in their life is, what is it that you want? And then what are all the beliefs you have about what will go wrong? What will you lose? Who will you lose? What will you have to give up in order to have it? And then objectively being able to go through that instead of just like spinning in a loop and being super frustrated that you're not growing and evolving.
Yeah.
All of the change that's happened in my life in the last 24 months, like, I think the only person who's still here is you. Through all of it. But like, there was so much more.
Your parents are still here.
Yeah.
Just leave them to die.
There was so much more to be gained, but in order to evolve and move into the next season of life, there was also a lot of stuff that had to be let go of and restructured.
I think what you just said is the important part. It's not what do you lose, it's what do you have to let go of. I think that's the part people get challenged with.
That's fucking terrifying because,
of course.
And I'm not, like, I'm here for the change. Like, have been through it many times in my life of, like, shedding of skin and moving forward. But the first time you do it, like, truly do it, it's fucking terrifying. Because you have no reference point that every time you let something go, something better takes its place. 100%. It's like being in a marriage for 15 years. Yeah. Well, I'll just stay here. I'm pot committed at this point. I'm 15 years deep. You don't trust and believe that if you leave this marriage, that there are better things for you on the other side, or a job you've had for 7 years. Shit, what if change is worse than what I'm currently experiencing?
100%.
Like, there's got to be, you got to let it go, but then there also has to be a trust that you will be supported if you...
So when you talk about like relationships specifically, I think what you kind of find over time is it's not so much the letting go of the relationships. I even look at like marriages because I've seen this play out very interestingly with people around me, or even friendships. I don't think it's that I have to leave a marriage or I have to end a friendship. I think it's you have to let go of what you believe about yourself in context to that relationship by you growing and evolving. And here's what I mean. I find for a lot of people, it is exceedingly difficult to accept the fact that things in your life are not necessarily permanent. Like, best thing I can tell you, you're only going to have a handful of relationships in your life. You're going to figure that out by being so radically you that at the end of life, when you get there, you're going to be like, cool, I got through this with like less than 10. Truly. I'm saying this at 31, 32 soon, understanding that like the people I thought that were going to be here, I'm about to be 30. It's about to be 10 years since I left college. It's fucking wild to me. The people I thought were going to be here and involved actively, it's nothing like who I thought initially. I got it right with like a couple people, but the most of the rest is not the case. And there's so many reasons. Distance, whatever you want to call it, but it's like being able to appreciate that that's just like the journey of life. The people you were friends with when you were 5 are not necessarily in your life anymore either.
Yeah.
So I think when you start to look at that, it's like you're always going to be good, and the handful of people that are going to make it through with you are going to, in different ways, in different purposes. Some people come, some people go, some people come back. Life's going to take its natural course. The only thing you can focus on is how do you show up as a person? And how does that reflect who you want to be, not only for yourself, but for the people around you? That, in practice, identifies, do I need to leave the marriage, or do I need to do things to determine if this is actually for me? Because I've seen the other side of it where people are like quick to just leave a marriage or a relationship because of social media, because like, oh, well, this, and this. And I'm like, we're so quick to discard things. I'm like, or you can be clear on who you want to be, have conversations, map and see if it is this can still be with that person, and then make a decision based on ongoing conversation and practice. But it's like an active forefront of what you're doing. Same thing in your friendships. We don't do that. We go extreme. We either like hold on to things for dear life, or we just completely discard.
Yeah.
And I think it's be clear on you first. Be absolutely as transparent as you be with yourself as like what this looks like, and then start mapping it with the people around you in your life. And the people who are meant to be with you will be with you, or they'll come back if they're meant to be anyways.
What you said, be so radically you. When people are authentic and just, this is who I am in all my glory and show up. Authenticity is infectious and it just magnetizes people to you that, like, as you said, are meant to be in your life. And I think that people are scared to be themselves because, well, one, probably your entire life up until this point is constructed by who you thought you were supposed to be. So when you start being you and showing up and identifying what those things are for you and what you want and what that looks like, relationships change and shift, and so does your path. And I think that's terrifying. I think the further down your own journey you go of this is who I am and you are authentic, it is very infectious. And even if you maybe aren't really close to somebody, you can just feel someone's presence when you're with them and this is all of me. Take it or leave it. Here to love. Like there's no, you just become so much less fearful because that energy just opens up doors and relationships in your life, but you have to be willing to go there. Be willing to show the world who you are and be okay that all the people that were here for a season might not be. Maybe those relationships change. Like you said, it's not to just like immediately discard it. But I think a lot of people build a life that is constructed based on who they thought they should be, and they didn't speak up and they didn't share what they wanted, what they valued. I'd rather be seen and not heard, not say shit if my mouth is full of it. And then you end up waking up in a prison with a life that you don't even recognize. And you just perpetuated that. And when you start to change it, things shift in your life. I've said this all the time, and I've said it for many years. It is much easier to keep a clean house than it is to clean one up. If you think of like a hoarder's house where there's just shit everywhere in every single drawer, every pantry cupboard, boxes, stuff that you should have got rid of decades ago. Your house is just this chaotic mess. And when you start cleaning it out, it is very tiresome and it is exhausting, and you have to let go of a lot of things, and you have to like parse through like what gets to stay and what has to leave. But when your house is clean, it's much easier to maintain a clean house than it is to just go through overhauling stuff. And I think when people go through change in their life, true change that, you know, kind of shifts the trajectory of where they're going, you're like pulling boxes out of the back shelf that you were like, oh, we don't got to deal with that 5 years ago. And then everything kind of comes to a head. But then once the house is clean, it's a lot easier to maintain it. This is who I am. This is what I value. This is what I stand for. This is what I'm not for.
Yeah. So the other side of that too is, and I'll use the house cleaning analogy. Once it's cleaned up, part of what has to happen for you is you have to be okay with settling into this is it. Because those same people, I've watched this, they have a hard time keeping the house clean, so they start cluttering again. They buy pots and pans and flowers, and also the house is a fucking jungle when they're done. So it's like, are you going to be good with that? Like, can you sit with the simplicity? And it's, again, this is not like a you can't have things in your house type conversation, just like you can't have things that you're working on within or in your relationships. It's just, are you going to create more clutter? We're good at creating more clutter, especially if we stay chaotic internally. We will create more clutter. Like, what'll feed it? Because that's your emotional home. And that's the question a lot of people who, especially with people who are commenting some of the things I did on your post, how are you perpetuating your own chaos? That's my honest question. Like, the world is just a mirror of you. Until you can gather that, then none of this is changing anyways. Because I can get you out of the job. I can give you all of the things I can give you the exact system to get a better raise or promote or whatever. And like, at the end of it, you will still be unfulfilled.
Yeah. That's like kind of what we're saying. It's like your patterns govern your life and they follow you everywhere. And that's how you are showing up, your own emotional state. You could go through 6 different jobs. And why is it at the end of every single season that you have at a job, like you feel the exact same way? You're frustrated about the same things. Like, homie, the common denominator is you in every single situation.
Yeah. I think the other thing for people to realize too, I've seen this posted a lot, and I'd love to have a conversation with these people because I think it's hilarious that they post this bullshit. But the whole idea of how you do one thing is how you do everything is such garbage. Like such garbage. And I like in the social media world, we're like, oh my god, he's jacked and he's in shape and he's rich. Like, he must be great with his family. He must be, bro. All these people suck behind closed. All of them. Every internet idiot is fucking terrible.
All these people suck.
They do. 100%.
I'm not
and
denying.
it's not how you do one thing is how you do everything. It's your perspective, your approach to one thing is actually identical across the board, kind of like what you said. Because you'll repeat your loops one way or another. If you're tumultuous in your approach to business, you're going to be tumultuous in your approach to health, which means you're going to also be tumultuous in your approach to family dynamics. That's like just the reality of it. I have friends, they're just extremists. Like, they will get in shape faster than anybody, and it'll be the most insane transformation. Then that'll fall off. They'll get it together in their personal life, and it'll just look like all good for like 90 days, and then it'll fall apart. Then they'll do that in their business. 90 days, but it's like you're an extremist. It's not that you do things well. You do things well when you become an extremist, but you end up only being good at one thing and leaving everything to fucking fall apart.
Yeah.
And I'm not naive to the idea that like there's a level of work and commitment and also time allocation that is required to get good at anything, whether it's spending time with family, whether it's becoming a better person, whether it's getting better at business. Like, there is a time allocation and there's a commitment path with that has to come. And that's, I think, what you kind of learn as you evolve is you can have everything, but you can't have all of it at once, especially early in life. I think that's the hardest thing for people to accept. The number of people I know who are young, who have everything they want, is almost zero. The people I know who are older, who have all of what they want, they have great battle stories about what they learned to get to the place where they're like, don't make these mistakes and you can have it sooner in life. It's like, there's success leaves clues. Like, you can figure out how this really works if you're patient.
Yeah. I think that comes back to what you said at the start of the episode, though. People don't know what they want and why they want it. So if you're just chasing all of these arbitrary things with no clarity, that's still issue number one. And then issue number two is you're extreme in your approach, and there's a time allocation to it. I was thinking about this earlier today. People want whatever the next thing is for them, but they don't want to remove anything off of their calendar and out of their life. It's like you have a current way of operating right now, and you're already maybe in some ways feel stretched a little bit thin. And you're like, okay, I would like to create change in this area of my life. It's like, okay, we'll use finances. I would like to improve my finances in the new year. Cool. But you don't want to stop eating out. Like, there has to be a trade. I don't want to be fat anymore. Okay. Well, you probably need to start tracking your food then. It's like you want the next thing, but you aren't willing to give something up in order
1000%.
to have it. Now, if you're not even clear on what you want and why you want it, you're not going to give up those things. You will have resistance to it. And there is not even a duration. Like, I don't think somebody should diet for 12 months of the year, but there is a period of time in which you have to be in a calorie deficit, and you're probably not going to eat out that much. And I get that, you know, people can say flexible dieting and like you can have your cake and eat it too, but like, okay. Or you could just like lock the fuck in 4 months and get it done and then reverse out of it and have flexibility. But are you willing to make that trade? It's like, okay, you want to save $30,000, $40,000 for an emergency savings fund, whatever. Can you lock the fuck in for like 12, 24 months and not go on trips and not spend money frivolously? And then when it's done, it's done. And then you can incorporate something else. Like, people don't want to give up something and then double down on something to get it and not have to like live there for a prolonged drug out period of time.
Yeah. I think leisure is where we find it most. Like, I think people say, I want to build business and I want to do this, but I also want to do all the leisurely things too. And I remember this is like 2019. From 2019 until 2022, this is me personally, I'm a big basketball person. Other than knowing what happens in like the NBA finals, I couldn't tell you what happened in any of those seasons. 2018 and before, I can tell you everything and anything about what goes on in sports. Like, I'm like big on it. to the point where I work with a guy who's in the NBA. And like I was like, okay, in order for me to do my job, I have to be marginally aware. So I check his box score, but I don't know who's good and what the fuck's going on. I'll go to his games, but like, I other than that for a period of time, I was like, I don't know what's going on. Why? I had a responsibility, and like the leisure side of this, I just the time for what I wanted, it wasn't the most useful for where my focus was.
Yep.
It's 2025, and I'm still like, watch probably a little bit more basketball now than I did even 2 years ago, which was 3 years ago was virtually nothing. Now it's a lot. It's a little bit more integrated, but yeah, I went 3 years to when I started. I was like, what am I gonna do? Sit here and think about the box score? As much as I love the joy and the leisure of like you get to go to games and sit courtside and do all this stuff, it's like right now this isn't my focus.
Yeah.
To the degree that I want to be able to do that stuff, right? Even right now in this moment, we're not there. I go probably more than I ever have because there are some things that have kind of settled into place and that I've learned to develop so that I can do more of it. But fuck, where I want to get is like we work. I just go to the game after every day, courtside 82 nights a year. Don't even give a shit. Like that's the kind like I just whatever I want to do, I can do hand in hand. The people I've met that are able to do that, there was a long time that it wasn't like that at all or close. And so I'm not naive to this idea that it's like, okay, I want time with my family and friends. I want to build these businesses. I want to be in great shape, but I also want to have the leisurely side of all of the things I quote unquote really want to enjoy. And it's like, yes, and like that's 2-3 hours a night of watching a sport. That's 3-4 nights a week. Like 8 to 10 hours of my life, factor in driving time, and then now I'm at 18. I'm almost a day's worth of time on something that if I just poured even half of that time into what I want to do, to build, it's not saying it's not worth it, and I've learned how to integrate it better. But there's a 0% chance right now that I'm going to every sport. I say no to things all the time. I think if I look at my life being here specifically, I get invited to things regularly. I think more than 2/3 of the time I'm still saying no. And it's not because I don't love those people or want to do stuff. It's just like, and the people who are closest to me who get it, they're like, yeah, cool. Totally get it. Not going to see you all the time. Vice versa. We have great relationships. Other people are like, oh no, like it's good. Like do this. I'm like, bro, you make $20 million a year. I don't make $20 million a year. You show up courtside after you signed a 9-figure deal. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
At all. We're not in the same place. I love you and I appreciate you opening doors for me, but like, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
It's going to be time. We're not far, I don't think, personally. In my perspective, it's now just a matter of when, not if. I'm also aware that I'm not going to get, even when we get there, it doesn't mean all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's cool. It's like there's a process to this.
Yeah, for sure. Any time in my life that I have acquired a new skill or achieved like a massive milestone that I wanted to hit, there was a lot of sacrifice. But it didn't feel like sacrifice for me personally. But I was also clear on like why I wanted this, and I was like willing to do whatever was required of me to achieve it. I have more integration in my life now than I ever have previously, but it's
a process.
I still say no 98% of the time.
I think the other part of it too, like, because I get to watch a lot of your transformation, I think a lot of it is learning, like, who am I saying yes to?
Oh, 100%.
That is more of it, I find. It's like, are you saying yes to everyone, or are you saying yes to wife, couple close friends, family, kids, like very specific things?
Yeah.
And I think when you realize that there's only so many people that actually matter, the harmony thing kind of it gets a lot easier to work with.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm very much at a place that like I don't want 20 friends.
Yeah,
I would like a small handful that I just deeply love, enjoy spending time with, and like that small circle of relationships where that's where I go to have leisure, enjoyment, hang out, travel, do different things with those people. But yeah, I could care less to have multiple relationships that I need to upkeep. I have some friends where maybe I see them once or twice a year. And when I do, we pick up right where we left off. It's fucking awesome. It's so like fulfilling. And then it's like, yeah, both parties are like going after what they want to in life. You know what I don't get? This is like a little bit of a side note. People who are in just constant text conversations with multiple people all day, every day, and just live in this like open communication loop with multiple people, man, that shit drives me fucking nuts. Don't talk to me. Don't even. I'm the type of person who tells our team, like, don't text me and say, hi, how are you? Just text me and be like, hey, Nat, I need this. Yeah. And I'm like, I got you, babe. How you doing? Yeah. I'm just so excited to give them what they need. But I see people and it's like, you're disorganized, you lack focus, you don't get the shit done that you need to, but yet you're talking to people all day, every day, and you're going back and forth on social media. Get your fucking priorities straight. Get your shit together so you don't have to be in this state all the time. Like if I was working a full-time job, which I have worked a full-time job and a part-time job and built a business and got it off the ground. So it's not coming from somebody who like just had an easy path with it. If I was working a full-time job and wanted to build a business, I sure as shit wouldn't be on dating apps and texting like random people that were transactional relationships. I wouldn't even tell anybody my goals. Because if I told somebody my goals, they'd be like, oh, well, that's exciting. And then they'd want to tell me about theirs. And I'd be like, homie, I don't give a fuck. I got outcomes and milestones to hit here. Oh, God.
Yeah, I think it gets, the numbers get smaller, too. I that's one thing that in, like, the last 4 years has been, like, very helpful for me is I have, like, Allie, who's, like, more or less like my sister. Obviously, I have that kind of relationship with you. And I'm like, I'm going to hear from you probably every day to some degree. You probably more than her, for example, just because it's 98.8% business conversation and like 1% are you okay? That's just what it is. But that's the context of the relationship. So it's like, cool. It's easy to go back and forth on a text on that. Like, cool. If that's someone I talk to regularly or frequently, or like Allie, it's like very sibling-like relationship. We'll exchange a few texts every day, whatever. But in general, it's like, I'll hit my homies. I saw my homies in August. I talked to one of them quarterly. The other one is my old roommate. I talk to him every 2 weeks on the phone when I go for a walk for 30 minutes. And everyone lives here and I see him when I see him, but it's like, I don't talk to you that much. Like, one of my good friends is here now.
I literally can't stand back and forth on the phone. Chatting with you is different because it's like, okay, business, we're like bouncing ideas. That's totally different to me. But for somebody who just wants to text me and be like, how was your afternoon? Great, fuck off. Like, with all the love. Yeah. No, I don't want to be in this conversation.
I'm like, yo, are you good? Fine. Yeah, I'm great. That's the other thing, too. Like, as you evolve, you realize, like, what am I talking to you for?
Yes.
Call me. Well, even, like, some of my closest friends now, like, I'll just text them, like, hey, I tried calling you. Just call me when you have time. I don't even want you to text me. You can send me a GIF or some shit or some video on Instagram, and like that can be our communication from time to time, and that's cool. I'm good with that. But like, what are you texting me for? And let me just tell you something. If you're gonna send me a voice note over a minute, I'm not listening to it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna write me a Bible every other week to lecture me or tell me what's going on, definitely not gonna be talking to you too much longer.
Dude, I struggle to even send a well-crafted long email to our team because I'm annoyed that I have to send it, let alone just full-blown back and forth conversations over text. I was at the point where I was like, okay, here's my plan for dating. I'm going to make a VSL.
VSL.
A video sales letter of now. Hello. Chances are you're here because you're looking for a wife. Could you imagine? Just fucking sling some videos.
It's a fucking evergreen YouTube video.
I'll just send them the unlisted link.
God. I'm so glad.
This is what I value.
This is the things you tell me. I'm like, God, I'm so happy I'm married. Like, I couldn't imagine that's the world we've come to. But like, it's okay. I get it. Like,
I feel like whoever I end up marrying will be like, low-key hilarious. You're fucking nuts. But that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's great.
Here's my video sales letter. This is me. Quick backstory. This is what I value. This is what I want. This is what you can expect. This is who I'm for. This is who I'm not for.
Just makes an evergreen
book in a phone call.
Yeah, with a booking link. Yeah. My God,
it's hilarious. But like people waste so much time in just like
but here's the thing, this
useless
goes
conversations.
To the overarching theme of this. It's like you're clear though.
Yeah, here's my VSL.
Like here's my VSL. It's as simple as like, yo, here's what I want.
This is my ideal customer.
Yeah. This is like this is what I want out of this job in my life. Like getting so clear. That's uncomfortable.
Okay, here's the takeaway for everyone. You're gonna build yourself a PowerPoint presentation based on
25 bingo cards.
Who you are, what you want, what you value, how does that show up and look in your life. Just quick little 5-page PowerPoint. And then look at your life and be like, is this congruent with where I'm spending my time?
100%.
I think I had one final question to
go ahead.
To wrap this one up with a little bow. Okay, I would like to leave the listeners with an action step that isn't them filling out a PowerPoint presentation. Best question to ask, maybe a little journal exercise, a little prompt for them.
Best question to ask for what?
Identifying what they value. Maybe it's like what they want, why they want it, so they can then at least start with the foundation of getting clarity for themselves. Give me a sentence completion.
I used this with a client today because he was doing some journaling exercises for the New Year's. I think the best thing you can do is start with what are your 5 to 8 values as a person. I think 5 is just enough to get you started. I think 8 is the ceiling, and I'm not saying you can't do more. I just find when people go too far over 8, it's just like, oh, I like trust, but I like hope, but I like kindness, but I like honesty. It's like pick 8 max. Pick 5 at least, but pick 8 max. And then look at your values and then map out what are the behaviors and the downstream things of your values. What do they look like for you in terms of relationships, in terms of how you operate, in terms of the things you want in your life? And then look at everybody around you and everything going on from your work to your relationship dynamics with your family, friends, getting together, whatever. Like, what needs to change? It's you. That's the answer, just so we're clear. Like, I'm giving you the answer to the test in advance. But when you see it, it's like if you tell me I value connection, but I'm doing a real shitty job of taking time to connect with myself, including the fact that I'm also not taking time to connect with others, it makes it real black and white what has to change. You have to change. You have to create the time for you to connect with yourself. And then you have to create the time to connect with other people who actually value the things that you value. So you make it black and white. What are the things what do I value? What do those values look like in practice to me? Just list like 1 to 2 behaviors, both for yourself and then also with the people in your life. And then just go downstream. Like, what does that look like? How do I want it to look like? It becomes very evident to you what has to change within you in order for you to start creating the life you want to create. But if you have no idea and you're not clear on who that is, like what your values are and what you're standing for, it doesn't matter. You're going to sit here in perpetual chaos.
Yep.
So.
Sweet. Well, everybody has homework. If you're feeling a little spicy and you like to have fun, I like laughs, so you can send us a PowerPoint presentation.
You can send us a PowerPoint presentation.
To the email. I'll do you one better. If you're real wild like me, you can take a photo of your values, post them on social media, and tag us at the Out of Office show. I'll repost you. Hit Nat Out of Office and the Out of Office show.
And tag Farshad Sarafi. It's not hard to find. I'm the only one.
Yeah. Just look for the bald guy. Top of the search list.
The only one.
All right. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.